I've been an avid reader since I learned how to read, but specifically, I have consistently been obsessed with reading for about 3 years now, and as time has went on, I've been wanting to circle back to books I read when I first started reading again to compare my book tastes from then to now and see if anything has changed. And for today's video, I selected 3 books from 3 different ends of the scale being did not like, it was fine, and absolutely loved, to see if these books are still the same or if they've changed as my book tastes have evolved. Hello guys, let's do a little update. I am back from vacation and I read this much of it as I was gone, kind of read it in fleeting moments. I wanted to start this video off reading the book that I feel like over the years since I have read this, I have just always, I never watched the TV show because I just really was going off the feeling that I had when I was in high school of that I didn't like something. And the whole entire concept of this video is that I read this book when I was 17. I feel like there's a lot of growing, obviously, I am not the person I was at 17, with the idea of me growing older and kind of how my life has been changing and my tastes have been changing even within the past year. Really wanted to try this one first to see. I wanted to test the change the most up front. I've even said in multiple different videos and stuff that I just don't think that Sally Rooney's for me. And the thing is that I think I read every single one of her books. I read this one first, then I read Conversations with Friends, and I actually didn't mind Conversation with Friends. As I picked this up and even just read a little bit of it, I'm underlining it. And I found myself, for example, when I was reading this at the beach, I had hours of a drive back to our place, and as I was driving I just kept thinking about how I wanted to pick the book back up and continue reading it. Weird for me because this is a book that all throughout the year I have been but there was always this thing that I always said that I want to reread Normal People, because it is just this thing in my mind where it's okay, you didn't like that when you were younger, but I feel like there have been other books. For example, when I was in high school, you could have never got me to look at a classic book. When I was in high school, I feel like it was just kind of a lot of romance, thriller, or nothing. And now I feel like I've been in more of my literary fiction era. I pick up a lot more different types of books. So I want to put this one to the test first and foremost. I am on page 46. I just find their relationship so perplexing. I just feel like it's somebody who cares so little of what others think, I guess. And then you have kind of the opposite end of that, of somebody who cares so much about what other people think, and kind of how that dynamic forms and affects a relationship. I don't remember a whole lot from when I first read this book. So it almost kind of also feels like reading it for the first time. Do people walk away from Normal People? I've kind of ignored discourse about Normal People because I've always been I didn't like it. So anyway, do people root for them? Do people want them together? This is interesting, and I should probably look this up because it's not a spoiler since I've already read the book. Even if I want to turn my mind off and go, listen, that is the entire point, is that this relationship is not one to more than likely be admired in every shape of the way. But I don't know, interesting. Continue reading this and also look up some conversations around Normal People. It's been so long, but I forgot how iconic of a character Connell's mom is, because she's kind of doing okay, I have to hold the book like this so it doesn't smack me in the face. But what I was saying was that I forgot how much I love Connell's mom as a character, because she's constantly calling him out on his behavior. But then I keep reading and I'm parts of Connell are me. He's talking about being at college and struggling and how other people act, and I'm is somebody writing down my inner monologue? Him as a character, I feel like he studies people and in a way self-criticizes himself because of looking at how other people act and looking at himself as weird. It's kind of hurting my brain a little bit. Anyway, this though right here, that I'm since we're keeping this non-spoiler, spoiler-free, this part right here though, it just got me. This was probably the most horrifying thing they could have said to him, not because it ended his life, but because it didn't. Yeah. 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 God. This is such an unserious way of talking about this book. I think I just remembered why I particularly disliked this book. And that's because, if you guys know me at all, miscommunication is my least favorite things to read in romance books. And I'm saying this in a romance book because this is not a romance book. It is a story about two people that are kind of romantically involved, but it's not a romance, if that makes any sense. I've been saying that lately. I wish I would stop saying if that makes any sense. I'm not eloquent enough to assume that you guys are not understanding what I'm saying. The thing that I feel like I didn't get when I was younger, back in my wee old young age of 17, as reading has went on, and because sometimes I do, and I feel like this video has made me also kind of think about, I don't want to keep on saying when I was younger, but kind of when I first got back into reading obsessively. I feel like growing up, books for me were just like, I would read, like when I was younger, I would read like the dystopian. As I got older, you know, like romances really intrigued me, and I feel like I didn't really step outside of genres. And so when I stepped outside of genres, I kind of looked at them within the same lens and critiques as I do look at like my romance books. And obviously this is something that I've learned as I've read more, that you kind of can't look at different genres and judge them on a scale that you hold to like a regular romance book. If I was looking at a romance, this would annoy me more than it is now. But I know that this story kind of almost uses the even little miscommunications that they have. It's like a driving force of the story. It is both what breaks them apart and holds these people together. I almost said, if that makes any sense, and almost came out of my mouth. Something that I noticed is that you learn about instance predicament that they're in. Obviously, if you guys know, Normal People kind of just takes place over a span of years between the two characters, and you learn about it first in her point of view, and she's talking about how this certain situation made her feel and how this left her, and then you learn about it in his point of view, and you kind of learn about something that he was wanting to tell her, and as he goes to tell her, she assumes something, and instead of communicating what he was originally thinking, his anxiety kind of overwhelms him and it never gets communicated, so then it leaves in the predicament that they're in now. And that's kind of a common theme throughout the book. So I feel like when I read this when I was in high school and I looked at this in the same lens as I would an Emily Henry book, you can't look at it in that way, because miscommunication is not driving the force of this book, but it is a theme, driving force, whatever you want to say, in this book. And that's just something that I'm realizing, and I'm like, you know what, I really like the concept of this video as it goes on, because it is just something that in moments like this I realize mature and growth within reading and book taste. I can say a book is 5 stars, but the reason that I can never explain how a book is a 5-star rating, because there's so many different lenses that you have to put on. For example, this is a literary book. This is a work of just fiction. This is a romance. You look at like my romances and those are different. You look at thrillers and those are different. You base your rating and judgments and taste off of different things that different genres give you. And I feel like when I would read back in high school, I didn't really think about it that way. I've just noticed the different feelings I have towards this book after realizing that, and that I'm really enjoying it. It is a work of fiction that I'm really, really enjoying. I guess that's the general consensus here. It's update time. So as you guys know, I have finished Normal People. Sorry, Charlie is doing her own thing right now. This is honestly just Charlie's world and I'm just living in it. My thoughts on this book previously, like previous me, I was like, ugh, I don't like these characters. Oh, they miscommunicate. Like, oh, this is so annoying. As I said in the last clip that I was talking in, this is where you see growth as a person. Sometimes when you revisit books, kind of like these, like sometimes you revisit a romance, you're like, oh wait, no, I like it now. Or you put a book down, you revisit it a few months later and you're like, oh wait, I like it. We just are constantly evolving as humans. This is not to get like super like philosophical, but really this book made me think, because I ended up settling on a 4 stars with this book. And I think previously, if you would have asked me before this video, I think I would have even told you this book was a 1 star. Connell is me. So many ways. It's so transparently clear. He suffers from anxiety, and it's talked about all throughout the book, and the ways in which he thinks overly about things and like interactions with people, down to just like some of the inner thoughts. Obviously he's not exactly me, like we're not twins, we're not exactly the same, but in a lot of ways I see myself in him. I have come to more see things in myself that I feel like I ignored when I was younger, and I've come to terms with a lot of things about myself that even I personally don't like. And I feel like maybe when I read this book when I was younger, I didn't like to see and relate to things of myself within character. I don't know, like rereading this book, I just have newfound appreciation. I do think that also something that I didn't really pay attention to when I was reading in high school was just like good writing. I think that I just kind of was just reading books. But rereading this, I mean, there are so many parts that I'm just annotating, and it's just even the way that everything is described down to like feeling emotions and facial expression, and all of it is just, I really enjoyed it. General consensus, 4 stars. Have a newfound appreciation for it. Even when I wasn't reading the book, like I brought this everywhere with me yesterday, even when I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about these characters, and also it makes me excited because I do want to now give the show a watch. I obviously had negative feelings towards the book before, so I didn't ever want to watch the show. I want to watch the show because I really enjoyed this book, which is crazy for me to say. So here we go. First book done. We have came to a new conclusion, people. So now I think it's time to visit the other end of this and read a book that I really loved when I was in high school. That was like a 5-star read for me that I've thought about over the years because I'm very interested to see how I would feel about it now. Hello guys, before I show you guys me reading the next books, I do want to tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video, which is of course Squarespace. Thank you so much again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. I talk about them all the time on this channel, but if you haven't heard about it yet, I'm here to tell you again, or for the first time, whichever it may be. In the world that we're living in, I feel like websites, blogs, anything really helps you run your business if you're in that social media part of the world, or even if you're trying to run a business in this day and age. The best and easiest way to do it is with Squarespace. All you have to do is just log on to Squarespace. You can browse all of their templates that they have. They have so many different styles, and even if you find a style that you like, you can then go through and customize it to fit your personal brand the way that you exactly want it to. More than that as well, in this day and age, analytics mean everything, whether you are running a business, a blog, whatever it may be, and Squarespace makes it so easy for you to navigate the different analytics that they offer. They have scheduling if you're wanting to run a business through the website, or if you're wanting to see where your audience is coming from, who are visiting the website, and different analytics to break down to help you grow your business. As well as for me, I have personally made my own like little blog on Squarespace, and something that I really like is just how easy they make it to connect all of your different social media streams from YouTube, Instagram, anything that you have. They can just easily click on it, and they make it very easy to have a sense of community on your Squarespace website. If you guys are interested, you guys can head on over to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and when you guys are ready to launch, you guys can head to squarespace.com/DestinySidWell to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Let's see the rest of the books that I'm reading. With the book that is on the 5-star absolutely loved when I was in high school is The Midnight Library. Now, if you know, you know. This is kind of funny because if you guys watched this video, I told Sarah and Haley that I was reading this book because I didn't want them to know that I was reading the storied life of A.J. Fickery. I don't know. If you watch that book, it's just funny now that I'm bringing up The Midnight Library again because, hey, Sarah and Haley, if you're watching this, I'm actually reading it this time. I remember I read this my senior year, and I really loved it. This is like one of those OG, honestly, it's kind of me just testing the tastes of OG Book Talk books because this, Normal People, Emily Henry, like those were all like OGs. I just remember really loving it because it really talks about and tackles mental health and kind of morality. No, that's cool. No, this is your channel. Anyway, and it just tackles too like the thought where you're at in life, and if you make other decisions, like how your life would have turned out and would you be happy in that life. I remember a lot about this book. This honestly is a book that has stuck with me for years. So I feel like this could be a testament to me still really liking it because obviously I speak very freely and openly about I know, thank you. You're getting my feelings. I'm feeling a little down, and you get that. I just kind of have a more positive feeling about maybe that I will still like this book. Let's get into reading this. Update time. Let's see, let me guess how far into this book I am right now. about this much through. Maybe that's halfway. Let's see. Let's play the game of Is Destiny Right? Destiny looks terrible right now. You guys are gonna see me reading the Midnight Library and be like, what is going on? Hey, proof, as this is loading, previous rating, you finished this book on February 18th, 2021. So I would have been 18 and I gave it a 5-star. Do you guys see that on Goodreads? Gave it a 5-star. We'll say currently reading. Update your progress. I'm on page 144. Guys, I am literally exactly 50%. Not to toot my own horn, but I am literally awesome at this. This is going to become a series on all my videos, me guessing how far I am into books. Anyway, 50% in, and I have to say, do I think that this is still a 5-star from what I've read so far? No. I feel like the philosophical thought that this book does bring on, because I feel like the whole entire thing about this book is that the main character is in this library of sorts. I'm not going to talk about why she's there, how she gets there, etc. because you can just read the book. She's in this library and it basically is this like book of regrets, and she chooses different lives by choosing like this decision that she made and regrets, and she goes to the life that where like she did make that decision, if that makes any sense. Like for example, one of the things is like she loved swimming. She regretted giving up swimming, so she goes to the life where she didn't give up swimming to see if she's happy in that life. And I do still really enjoy, as I said earlier, the kind of philosophical question that it brings of like, no matter what, you can go through life and like you can regret all these decisions you made, but one, you can't help sometimes some of the things that happen in life, and two, if you went back, that doesn't necessarily mean that that life would have made you happier than the one that you're living right now. And I always really liked that, the thought that this bring in the book. And obviously it talks about mental health and kind of how in some circumstances, just because you look outwardly successful doesn't mean that you're still not suffering on the inside. I don't want to use the B word. I don't want to use the B word, but I think I'm gonna. I'm bored. I'm bored. It's true. It's true. I'm reading this and like right now, well, I remember even thinking this too, like one of the longest kind of excursions that we go on within her life felt so random to me that we're exploring this lifeline of all of her other ones. Like it's just so mundane to me to read, and I'm just like, okay, don't care. I feel like other things in her life mattered a lot more than this life one does. So far from what I've been reading, do I think it's going to be a 5 stars? No. I don't even think it's going to be a 4-star. I think it would probably sit somewhere in that 3-star region. I feel like it's a funny way, because from both ends, like opposite ends of a book that I hated and a book that I loved, it is bringing the same thing though of like what I loved about a book. Like what when I was in high school, what I loved about a book that when I'm older, I really like kind of don't like. And it's the same as like what I didn't like about a book when I was in high school, I've grown older and liked about books and kind of like more appreciate and understand things. Whereas with this one, like even the way that this is written is just a little like odd to me. Like even the writing is just very like kind of simplistic and a little cheesy. It's giving like Papa John's cheese pizza. Like it's cheesy. And so was me saying that. I think that's stuff that, again, how I talked about earlier with normal people, that I didn't appreciate writing. I feel like that's also something that when I was in high school, I didn't really notice writing, period. And now that's just stuff that sticks out to me. Okay, I'm gonna go back to reading this. Hi, I'm too lazy to like actually sit this somewhere that's not my bed. Getting more and more upset with this tripod. Anyway, I just finished the Midnight Library, and the funny thing is, literally like the last life that we go through in this book, I just felt the same emotion that I did when I read it in high school. I just wish we got more of a conclusion on this certain thing, because that certain life seemed so perfect, but you know, you draw the conclusions and stuff from that life of why it wasn't blah 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 blah. I just was a really big fan of that life if you read the book. I really like the conclusion of this book. I do like this book. I think that I just really like the idea of really talking about mental health and kind of decisions within our life and the whole entire thought of like different universes. I think it's a very fun premise. Not fun at all times. It's serious. It's fun. It's fun to explore. And I just, again, hey, I'm going to say it again. I enjoyed the book. I think I'm going to settle on a 3 stars. At 3 stars most of the time for me is I enjoyed the book. I would still recommend it. There were times that I was really enthralled with the book, but there were also, I feel like it's kind of 50-50 of like bored 50% of the time, enthralled 50% of the time. I would still say that I would recommend this book, absolutely. It's just not a 5-star for me. I feel like with the 2 books that I've read so far, it's like it's opposite end, and they kind of gave the opposite reaction. Like whereas with normal people, it was like when I was younger, I feel like I didn't really understand or appreciate the book, and now that I'm older I can. And with this one, when I was younger, I really loved this book, but now I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's still good, I would still absolutely recommend it, but it's just not like all of what I thought it was when I was younger. This book, again, kind of how I said with normal people, how I always kind of thought, I really want to revisit the book because I just kind of wonder what I would think now. I have the same exact thought with this book. I have the same exact thought with the last book for today's video, which is Where We Meet in the Middle, with a book that I kind of feel pretty indifferent towards, but I always say isn't a favorite book for me. My room's a mess, don't look. Okay, so let's talk about why this is the 3rd and final book for today's video. The whole entire thing with this video is that I really wanted to visit book, and it kind of all fell within that timeline of like when I was in high school, because I read all 3 of these books when I was in high school. This one I just thought was very interesting because if you guys were to look at me and ask me who my favorite author is, I think off the top of my head I would always say Emily Henry. Her books are just so deeply personal to me. I feel such a strong attachment for them. I read this book right before I graduated high school. All 3 of these books are very engraved in my memory, which is why I chose the 3 of them to test my book taste. If you guys know, then you know why this book is here, probably, because when I talk about Emily Henry books, I never talk about this book, and if I do bring this book up, I say that I don't really like this book, which obviously, even when you have favorite authors, you can just have like a one-off book that maybe just didn't hit for you. Like when I think of Book Lovers Beach Read, Happy Place, I absolutely love and adore those books. They're all a 5-star for me. But then I think of this one, and I'm pretty sure I ended up like giving this one a 3 stars, and even when I was in high school, if I gave a book a 3 stars, because I handed out 5 stars, kind of, especially back then, if I gave a book a lower rating, it probably, with how I rate books now, would probably end up lower on the scale. So I looked at this book as a 3-star back when I was in high school. I didn't really love it, and I didn't really see the hype with Emily Henry when I read this book. Always been, again, a common theme within this video, and kind of why all 3 of these books were chose on different, wherever they lied within my little rating system. It was that these are books that since I have read them years ago, I have wanted to revisit just to see what I think now. I just feel like it's interesting and I really want to do it, and I obviously love Emily Henry books. I did this kind of same concept but different last year where I reread books that I rated 5 stars like throughout my reading journey, and one of the books that I read in that video was Beach Read by Emily Henry, which is still to this day one of my favorite 5-star reads. It just re-solidified it for me and I fell back in love with the book all over again. I also wanted to pick up this one kind of on a different end of it, of a book that I don't really love. I can remember not really loving the girl or guy in this book, and this is from what I remembered. Obviously, as we've seen from this video, we have seen both of the reactions of like a book that I hated, I end up really enjoying, and a book that was a 5 stars. It was just kind of meh. So I'm very interested to see, and I saved the best for last, I feel, because again, I love Emily Henry's books, so I feel like it'll be very interesting to see where this book ends up. Update, I am like 116 pages in. I'm on chapter 12 right now. It's something about Emily Henry's books that I have noticed as she releases more books, and every single one of them changes in different ways, and it may just be with the characters that she's writing, the story that she's following. But even in Happy Place, I remember one of the things that like not even just I said, but I saw all across the board, is that her writing like distinctly changed in Happy Place for good, in a good way. Her writing has never been bad. I've always said I would literally read Emily Henry's grocery list. It's just like a different type of style. Something that I've noticed with this one definitely feels more of that rom-com vibe. I've always said about Emily Henry books is that they don't really feel like romances to me. Like obviously it has a strong plot of romance going on, but there's usually always like this other thing going on with the main character that kind of takes precedent over the story, and then in the background, but kind of just walking alongside you throughout the whole entire book, is the romance subplot. And so I've kind of always said that Emily Henry is more women's fiction with a strong subplot of romance, but this one feels more of that like genuine rom-com vibe. Like we're really honestly just focusing on them. Of course, like, she still sprinkles in some of the little things that like Poppy is dealing with, an inner turmoil within her life and stuff that she's kind of coming to terms with, but it's very light compared to the other book. It's just interesting because I find myself like actually literally, of course, I've always said, and it's kind of a known thing across everywhere, that Emily Henry's banter is pretty much unmatched, and in this one I just find myself like actually laughing like out loud and wanting to take this pen and underline. I don't know why we got country there for a second. I went on Goodreads and it says that I had rated this, I think it said I rated it 4 stars when I read it, but I said earlier I always kind of just like thought back on it as a 3, but I'm just still enjoying it. But the thing is that I can remember now as I'm reading it, things are coming back to me that haven't even happened yet that I just remember in the story. One that I remember, this is funny because we're calling back to miscommunication, and this is kind of what I was talking about, how it's different in normal people versus different in romance books, how the miscommunication and main conflict within this book was like extremely stupid, like to the point where I was like, how old are these people? Like, I'm kind of like thinking now we are having a conflict over this. Still, at least I still have that thought. I really like Alex. I'm so tired. I don't know why I never thought about him as an Emily Henry boyfriend. He just never came to mind, but as I'm reading this, I'm like, me. Hi guys, it is now literally it's not almost 24 hours later. That's a huge exaggeration. It's not even 12 hours later, I don't think. Anyway. Wait, it has been 12 hours. It has been 12 hours. What am I talking about? It doesn't matter. Last night, I stayed up until like 3 o'clock in the morning to finish People We Meet on Vacation. I didn't do an update other than the one that I had filmed last night, talking about how this one felt more rom-com-y than Emily Henry's other book. I swear, in today's video, we have gotten each and every end of the reaction that you could get within this experiment, I guess we can call it. This one, I kind of feel the same way about, but a little bit better. So I think before this, I would have honestly probably, if we had to put a star rating on this one, I probably would have given it a 3. Got into it, I never really talked about it. But then after rereading it, I decided to bump it up to a 4. So now it's a 4. Love the girl in this book, and that has stayed the same. Most of my feelings for this book honestly have stayed the same, except that I absolutely adore and love the guy. Their banter was literally so good. Rereading this, I need to reread Book Lovers because I remember I like went through a Charlie Lastra phase. And after reading this one, I was like, wait, why is this banter like some of the best that I've read within Emily Henry's books? It was funny. Like, I was giggling out loud, and just still, it's an Emily Henry book at the end of the day, so I do still love it, and I would always recommend it. Obviously, it's a 4 star, so it's a very good rating, but I just still kind of feel the same way about it, though. Like, ultimately, it did jump up 1 star, but I still feel the same way where I don't know how often I'll think about this one. It doesn't hold the emotional depth. I'm not upset. Like, I liked the guy a lot, but I'm not obsessed with him, so I think this one just still sits at the bottom for me. That's just my thoughts on this book. So, we read these 3 books in today's video, and really, I had every reaction that you could see, which I think is so interesting. If there's anything that you guys are taking away from this video, I would say to reread. Rereading is something that I never did. Before I started making videos of me reading, I could have never fathomed rereading a book, because in my brain there are so many books out there. Why would I want to reread a book that I've already read when I can go read a new one? I always thought that way. And then I remember watching YouTubers talking about rereading like their favorite books, or like, I reread this book every year. And then I forget what book I even went back and like reread. And I was like, wait, I do really, really like this though. Sometimes it's just very comforting to be back with characters that you know that you love, or to give a book a second chance if you kind of feel it in your heart. That's what I felt with Normal People a little bit, and People We Meet on Vacation. You know what though? The 2 books that I wanted to give a second chance did go up in their rating. This is your sign to maybe revisit some of your lower rated books that you may have read some years ago, and maybe come back to them and see what you think now. I think it's a very interesting thing to do and experiment with. With that being said, that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, you guys know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff that you guys know how to do. Thank you so much again for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys when I see ya. Okay, peace.